I'm authorizing a new screening program for testosterone deficiency for our service members, ensuring you have the right testosterone levels to operate at your absolute best.
What was that, Whiskey Leaks? Sounds to me like you're offering gender affirming care. Is that what you're doing? You're offering gender affirming care?
At the Department of War, we have the most elite warriors on the face of the earth. Every single day, you are pushed to your absolute physical and mental limits to master the profession of arms. We demand your all, and you give it. But while we invest heavily in our weapon systems, platforms, and gear, our most decisive tactical advantage will always be the individual warfighter. We have a sacred duty to maintain that advantage, which is why we must constantly look for new ways to optimize your performance, your resilience, and your long-term health. Under the supervision of our world-class medical professionals, warfighters age 30 and older are going to be tested annually as part of their periodic health assessment. It's a health assessment that happens every year. We're just adding this test. Those under 30 can voluntarily choose to get the test as well. If treatment is recommended, it's entirely your choice to receive testosterone replacement therapy.
Sure it is.
This initiative, it's not about artificial enhancement. It's about restoring and optimizing your natural capabilities, protecting your longevity, and ensuring you have the biological foundation required to sustain the fight. We owe our warriors the absolute best medical care in the world, and this program delivers on that obligation.
Okay, I realize there is endless snark here, but there's actually something far more, I don't want to say sinister, far more sinister and structural that's going on that we should talk about, but let me snark for a second first. Right, like it's obvious that Pete Day drunk Hegseth is just mainlining that copium, right? He's absolutely projecting endlessly. Remember last year when he sat in front of our military leaders and basically said, I don't want any beardies and fatties in the military. He's obsessed with physical appearance and his own Christo-fascist concept of what is true masculinity. And it's just pure projection. It's pure projection. It's so embarrassingly obvious to all of us what's going on with him. He's deeply, profoundly insecure. But yeah, it's like you can snark on that. You can be like, oh my God, he's just afraid of his own beta cuck energy, right? Like you can say those kinds of things. But this is a man, a Fox News host that Donald Trump has put in charge of our military, a man who likes to, just like ICE, just like all of these fragile men on the right, he's flirting, he's doing fatal live action role play. He has imagined himself as the general in charge of all of the war fighters, the way he has called the Department of Defense the Department of War. No, it is still the Department of Defense. It's still the Department of Defense. The way he is just like using all of this loaded language that he thinks makes him sound so boss, so masculine, right? This Christo-fascist concept of like being a war fighter, being a warrior, being super masculine, super strong, being like really aggro, right, on the verge of roid rage, like that is a hallmark of your masculinity that's so typically white evangelical Christian in this country, conflating kind of aggressive, dominating behavior with masculinity. It's this compulsion to perform a very narrow range of behaviors to demonstrate to everybody that like, yes, I am hypermasculine, you guys. Look at me. I'm so masculine. I know that I only fit in the society and I only have self-worth if I'm perceived by other people as appropriately masculine. And that masculinity is defined by like rage, defined by a warrior-like status, defined by a very narrow kind of body shape and level of physical fitness, which Captain Morgan there doesn't have, right? He can't do a pull-up and he can barely bench press. And like, okay, there's not really that much utility in snarking on it because this is a greater structural problem. But at the same time, Pete Hegseth is running the Department of Defense for the United States of America. He's committing war crimes abroad. He's committing atrocities. He's firing capable career service members, especially women and Black folks. He's attempting to remake the military into some kind of, Third Reich fascist image, which he's just as cringy, right? If you look back on like 1930s and 40s Germany, you guys You guys, the Nazis were really, really fucking cringe. Really cringe. And he is the same kind of like pure insecurity and just like full display and thinking nobody can see it, thinking he's projecting masculinity, and he's just so embarrassing. But he has access to billions of dollars and he's killing people. Like, the consequences of Pete Hegseth not going to therapy to deal with his issues is that people are dying, and that the United States and the United States military are being run into the ground. I guess that brings me to the greater structural issue here, which is that the patriarchy negatively impacts everybody. I got some criticism recently for like being too hard on men on my channel. It was too hard on men. I'm not trying to be hard on men. I'm trying to be hard on the patriarchy. The reason that I'm an intersectional feminist is because we all need liberation from the patriarchy and also white supremacy and also capitalism. But the patriarchy doesn't just hurt women and girls, it hurts men too. And it weaponizes men's pain and trauma and insecurities and like shortcomings. It weaponizes all of them to further exacerbate and increase the power of the patriarchy. It weaponizes the harm it does to men to cause them to go out and commit more harm, outsized harm on everybody else. The patriarchy does not help men live healthy, full, contented, fulfilled lives. It produces men who are terribly, terribly fragile and insecure, men who do not feel okay about themselves, men who are afraid to seek out help, to unpack their trauma, men who are afraid of their own feelings, men who are afraid of not putting on a daily performance so that they fit what the patriarchy says and the Christo-fascist version of the patriarchy says is acceptable. I want to point to an article in The Guardian that came out way back in 2019. This concept that Pete Hegseth is pushing for now is rolling out now to the tune of how many taxpayer dollars? Like, they're going to test our service members. Don't fucking call them war fighters. Our service members are going to be tested for low T if they are 30 years or over. When I saw this, I was like, oh, of course they are. Because the far right in this country have been obsessed with this concept of low testosterone for a long time. When you hear somebody talking about low T and needing to get, enhancement for cis men, when it comes to their testosterone, that's immediately a right-wing dog whistle. So this article by Sam Wolfson from 2019, alt-right activists believe low testosterone is resulting in a crisis of masculinity. But is low T really to blame for making men soft? The idea that evangelical Christo-fascist men have, which is that softness is a sign of weakness, and men like, I want a soft man. I want a man who has emotional literacy and intelligence. I want a man who's not afraid of his own feelings. I want a man who is not afraid to be something other than this like roided out soldier projection, and like a man who thinks that lust and rage, violence and conquering are the only ways to be a man. Damn, Christo-fascists are afraid of men like that. I guess they're not really familiar with Jesus Christ, the servant king who washed people's feet, who sacrificed himself, a man who did not fit this depiction of whatever Pete Hegseth thinks is manly and masculine. And did you also catch how he was like, oh, we're not using this for enhancement yet. You're not using it for enhancement yet. These guys believe the more testosterone, the better. They want their super soldiers. They want their super soldiers. They will use our service members as guinea pigs to fit their Christo-fascist ideal. It's bad shit that we have allowed these men with all of their giant glaring insecurities to run the United States military, to run the government. Like, these guys are so cringy. They're so cringy and they're so scared. And yet they have tremendous power and wealth and access to the war machine. It's just this fixation, this false belief that like the angrier you are, the more violent you are, the more testosterone you have in your system, the less you are able to control your rage, the more manly and the better you are. There was this study that came out last year that I see conservatives cite. It was like a piddly little study of like 100 and something men that said if you give men more testosterone, especially men who are like, sort of Democrat, if you give them more testosterone, that their politics will shift to the right. And conservatives use this as proof that, like Democrats are a bunch of soy boys and they're low T, and that Republicans are more manly. But like, what is manliness? It's a construct of the patriarchy. The patriarchy has not made Pete Hegseth a happier person. I would argue that no man in Donald Trump's regime is happy and content and knows real joy and connection. It sure has risked our democracy and cost us lives and millions of taxpayer dollars.